Jonathan Walker, a middle-aged man with a well-worn face and sun-touched skin, stood in front of his newly acquired 200-acre ranch. The bristles of his beard carried the scent of earth and sweat, a testament to his love for the outdoors. He had finally done it, traded in his former life for this vast expanse of land that stretched out before him like an open book waiting to be read. "Good morning, world," he whispered, eyes filled with the wonder of a child as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon. At 6 a.m. sharp, Jonathan rose from his creaky bed, his body moving with the precision of a well-oiled machine. He slipped on his boots and grabbed his worn flannel shirt, feeling its familiar softness against his skin. As he stepped outside, the crisp morning air greeted him like an old friend, carrying the faintest hint of dew and the promise of a new day. "Time to get to work," he muttered, grabbing a pail of feed and making his way toward the stables. "Morning, Thunder," he called out, greeting one of his prized Arabian horses. The stallion snorted and stomped its hooves, eager for breakfast. "Hungry, huh?" Jonathan chuckled, pouring feed into the trough and watching as Thunder quickly devoured his meal. "All right, let's go see how the cows are doing," he said, patting Thunder's flank before heading to the next enclosure. "Good morning, ladies," he addressed his herd of Angus cattle, their breaths visible in the cool morning air. "I hope you're all doing well today." He moved among them, checking for any signs of illness or injury, his heart swelling with pride at how healthy they appeared. Satisfied, he filled their troughs with fresh hay and continued on to his final task. "Morning, girls," he greeted his flock of Rhode Island red chickens, their clucks and coos creating a lively symphony. He scattered feed across the ground, watching as they pecked away at the kernels with gusto. As he collected their eggs, he couldn't help but smile at the simple joy of it all. This was the life he had always dreamed of. Another day on the ranch, Jonathan mused, pausing for a moment to take in the sprawling landscape around him. "This is where I belong." The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the ranch. Jonathan leaned against the wooden fence, taking a deep breath of crisp air, his eyes scanning the vast expanse before him. The nearest town was 20 miles away, a fact that filled him with a sense of tranquility and satisfaction. This isolation was exactly what he had yearned for in his previous life, working long hours in a cramped office. "Much better than the city grind," he murmured to himself, his beard catching the last rays of sunlight. He felt a sense of peace wash over him, as if the weight of his old life had finally been lifted from his shoulders. "Hey there, big guy," he said softly, reaching out a weathered hand to stroke the muzzle of a nearby horse. The gentle touch between man and animal sparked a warmth within him that he had never experienced in the corporate world. "Can you believe it's just us out here?" he asked the horse, who snorted in response. "No more deadlines, no more meetings, just fresh air, wide open spaces, and good company." At that moment, a cool breeze rustled the branches of a nearby tree, carrying with it the distant sound of coyotes howling. It was a stark reminder of his new reality, one where he could fully embrace his love for nature without the distractions of city life. "Ah, music to my ears," he whispered, closing his eyes and letting the sounds of the wild envelop him. As he stood there, listening to the symphony of nature, it dawned on him that this was where he truly belonged, away from the hustle and bustle, living harmoniously with the creatures that shared the land with him. "All right, buddy," he told the horse, giving its neck a final pat. "Time to head back to the barn. The day's not getting any younger." "Here's to many more days just like this one," he said as they walked side by side, the sun sinking lower in the sky. Jonathan couldn't help but smile, knowing that he had finally found his place in the world. Jonathan walked through the barn doors, greeted by the soft nickering of his prized Arabian horses. Their sleek, muscular bodies glistened in the morning light as they eagerly snorted and stamped their hooves, awaiting his attention. "Easy now," he murmured, stroking the velvety muzzle of his favorite mare, Arya. "Breakfast's coming right up." He moved gracefully, his calloused hands brushing through their manes and tails as he tended to them with practiced ease. The horses responded to his touch, their large, intelligent eyes watching him with contentment. "All right, let's get you fed," he said, doling out generous portions of hay for each horse. Next, Jonathan made his way towards the fenced pasture where his herd of Angus cattle grazed. The sun cast golden rays upon the black hides of the cows, illuminating the serene scene. He whistled softly as he approached, drawing their curious gazes. "Morning, ladies," he greeted them, his voice warm and affectionate. He counted them all, making sure none were missing or injured. Finally, Jonathan headed towards the chicken coop, where his flock of Rhode Island red chickens busily pecked at the ground, their russet feathers ruffling in the gentle breeze. He scattered feed for them, watching as they clucked and scratched, their movements synchronized and harmonious. "Keep up the good work," he told them, collecting freshly laid eggs from their nesting boxes. As he went about his daily chores, Jonathan couldn't help but marvel at the beauty of the surrounding landscape. The towering mesas loomed in the distance, their jagged edges cutting into the clear blue sky like ancient monuments. Rugged terrain stretched out before him, dotted with hardy desert flora that managed to thrive despite the arid conditions. "Amazing, isn't it?" he whispered to himself, his heart swelling with gratitude for the place he now called home. The sun began to dip below the horizon, bathing the world in hues of pink and orange. The vibrant colors danced across the sky, casting a warm glow on the land and animals alike. It was moments like these that fueled Jonathan's passion for his ranch, and his desire to uncover the truth behind the strange happenings that had recently plagued it. "Whatever's going on here," he muttered, determination flickering in his eyes. "I'll get to the bottom of it, for their sake." He glanced back at his animals, his love for them driving him to protect the life they all shared. And as the sun disappeared, giving way to the star-speckled night, Jonathan knew that he would do whatever it took to preserve the harmony they had found in this remote corner of New Mexico. Jonathan stood at the edge of his ranch, a steaming mug of coffee in hand, as he watched the first rays of sunlight peek over the towering mesas. A cloud of dust billowed on the horizon, drawing closer with every passing second. He squinted, shielding his eyes from the sun's glare, trying to make out the approaching figure. As it neared, the outline of a rusted pickup truck emerged, bouncing along the rocky dirt road. "Morning, Rosalie," he called out as the truck came to a halt before him. The driver's side door creaked open and out stepped Rosalie Martinez, her long dark hair tied back in a loose ponytail. "Morning, Jonathan," she replied, her voice as warm as her smile. "Hope I'm not bothering you too early." "Never too early for a friendly face," he chuckled, taking a sip from his mug. "What brings you by today?" "Need some more eggs and beef," she said, brushing off her jeans. "The kids can't get enough." "Sure thing," Jonathan nodded. "Just give me a minute to gather them up for you." As they walked toward the hen house together, Rosalie looked around the ranch with admiration. "You've really made this place your own, haven't you?" she remarked. "Couldn't imagine being anywhere else," he replied, his pride evident in his voice. Rosalie nodded, then hesitated before speaking again. "You know, there are stories about this land, old legends that have been passed down through generations. Some folks say there's something strange about this place." "Strange how?" Jonathan asked, intrigued. "Well," she began, glancing around as if the very air held secrets. "Some people believe that there are supernatural forces at work here, spirits or energies that linger from another time." "Really?" He raised an eyebrow, a mixture of skepticism and curiosity playing across his face. "Do you believe in all that?" "Hard to say," she replied, her eyes distant. "But I've lived around here my whole life, and I've seen things that can't be easily explained." "Like what?" Jonathan pressed, suddenly more interested in their conversation than the eggs he was collecting. "Unearthly lights at night, strange sounds echoing through the canyons, even animals acting out of character," Rosalie shared, her voice low. "It's said that these energies can affect the living, and sometimes they're not so friendly." Jonathan paused, considering her words. He thought about the odd occurrences he had experienced on the ranch so far, the unexplainable events that had sent a shiver down his spine. Could there be some truth to these legends? "Thank you for sharing this with me, Rosalie," he said as they walked back toward her truck, both weighed down with bags of fresh eggs and cuts of beef. "I'll keep it in mind." "Be careful, Jonathan," she warned, her eyes filled with genuine concern. "There's a lot we don't know about this world, and sometimes ignorance can be our greatest defense." As she drove away, leaving behind another cloud of dust, Jonathan stood deep in thought. The sun continued its ascent into the sky, casting long shadows across the rugged landscape. And while the beauty of the land and his love for his animals remained steadfast, a new seed of unease began to take root in his heart, a determination to uncover the mysteries that lay hidden within the mesa's shadows. Jonathan had spent countless nights monitoring his ranch, hoping to catch a glimpse of the strange lights Rosalie had mentioned. But each night proved to be as enigmatic as the last, with no sign of the unearthly phenomena. However, the incidents involving his livestock continued to escalate. One chilly evening, Jonathan finished his chores and settled into a worn armchair in his cozy ranch house. He warmed his hands around a mug of hot cocoa, his mind consumed by thoughts of the recent disturbances. Suddenly, a piercing scream pierced the air, jolting him from his seat. Leaping to his feet, Jonathan rushed outside, the adrenaline pumping through his veins. He followed the sound of distress to the cattle enclosure, where he found his herd in a state of panic. The cows huddled together, their eyes wide with fear, and blood-curdling cries filled the night. His heart racing, Jonathan surveyed the scene, his gaze drawn to the sky. There, hovering above the ranch, was an eerie, pulsating light. It bathed the area in an otherworldly glow, casting long, distorted shadows across the trembling animals. The light seemed to defy the laws of physics, moving in impossible patterns and changing colors at will. "Who, or what are you?" Jonathan muttered, his voice barely audible amidst the chaos. As he watched, the light darted across the sky with astonishing speed, disappearing into the distance in an instant. The cows slowly calmed down, their frightened moos fading away. Jonathan stood there, awestruck and perplexed, unable to explain what he had just witnessed. In the following days, the mysterious light returned sporadically, wreaking havoc on Jonathan's livestock. Cattle would go missing overnight, leaving behind only traces of blood and mutilated carcasses. The chickens, once a lively and productive flock, dwindled in numbers as they fell victim to inexplicable attacks. It became clear to Jonathan that the strange lights were connected to the abductions and mutilations plaguing his beloved animals. Determined to protect his remaining stock and uncover the truth, Jonathan set up surveillance cameras throughout the ranch, keeping a watchful eye on the enclosures day and night. Sleep became a luxury as he spent hours studying the footage, searching for any sign of the culprits behind the horrifying events. Weeks turned into months as Jonathan tirelessly investigated, leaving no stone unturned in his quest for answers. He scoured books and websites, searching for clues about extraterrestrial phenomena and mysterious occurrences. His once peaceful life had been upturned, and he was no longer the content rancher he once was. The lines on his face deepened, etching the weight of responsibility and determination into his features. Then, one fateful night, as Jonathan sat in his dimly lit study, poring over a book on UFO sightings, a thought struck him. He recalled Rosalie's words about the supernatural forces at work in the area. Perhaps these legends held the key to the enigma that had befallen his ranch. Driven by a newfound conviction, Jonathan sought out Rosalie once again. He shared his experiences, the evidence he had gathered, and the strange lights that had haunted his livestock. Rosalie listened intently, her expression a mixture of concern and validation. "I never thought I'd witness it myself," she admitted, her voice tinged with a mix of awe and trepidation. "But the lights you described, they match the accounts of those who have encountered UFOs." Jonathan's eyes widened. "You mean aliens?" Rosalie nodded solemnly. "It's possible. The legends say that this land is a hotspot for extraterrestrial activity, that the spirits or energies that linger here are linked to these beings from beyond." Jonathan's mind swirled with a mix of fear and determination. He couldn't stand idly by while his livestock suffered and his peaceful sanctuary was violated. If these lights were indeed UFOs, he needed to find a way to protect his animals and find a resolution. For the next few days, Jonathan would sit outside his farmhouse with a shotgun in hand, determined to defend his land if necessary. He watched the sky with hawk-like intensity, scanning for any sign of the mysterious lights. One night, as he sat vigilant, his heart pounding in his chest, he saw it. The light returned, pulsating and glowing with an otherworldly energy. This time, Jonathan was ready. He took aim with his shotgun, his hands shaking with anticipation and fear. The light descended, hovering in front of him, illuminating his face with an eerie glow. Jonathan felt an inexplicable energy coursing through his body, and he could feel the presence of something not of this world. Suddenly, a beam of light shot out from the UFO, enveloping Jonathan in its grasp. He felt himself lifted off the ground, his body weightless and free. For a moment, Jonathan was suspended in the air, surrounded by the pulsating light. His heart raced as he tried to make sense of what was happening. Was he being abducted? Would he ever see his ranch again? But then, just as suddenly as it had started, the beam of light vanished, and Jonathan found himself standing on the ground once more. Shaken but unharmed, Jonathan stumbled backwards, his shotgun clattering to the ground. He looked up to see the UFO vanishing into the distance, leaving behind only a trail of shimmering light. In the days that followed, Jonathan struggled to come to terms with what he had experienced. He knew that the UFOs were still a threat, but he also felt a strange sense of wonder and curiosity. What else was out there in the universe?